I'll open the meeting since Elizabeth, our chair, is in transit. Today is March 11th. It is currently 6:37 p.m. All members are present with the exception of Travis, who is out on paternity leave. This meeting is being recorded by the Conservation Commission. If any other persons present are doing the same, you must notify the chairperson at this time. Hearing no response, I'm assuming that it's just us recording. Should any technical interruption to the meeting occur and the meeting is suddenly ended, it will not be resumed and all items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting date, which is, I think I don't want to get it wrong. The 25th of March. Please contact the conservation agent for more information. All right, first item on the agenda is administrative matters, approval of meeting minutes from February 11th. 2025. That feels like a long time ago.
Does it say February?
It does. I don't think that's right. It should be the 25th.
Oh, it says the 25th on my
Oh,
agenda. Is that on your agenda?
oh, I'm looking at the meeting minutes from the 25th. My bad. Sorry.
Okay.
So yeah, sorry. Approval of meeting minutes from February 25th.
Oh gosh.
Kristen, can you hear us when we talk, when Erica and I talk?
I can hear you. Yep. I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 25th.
Second.
Was that seconded?
Yes.
Seconded by Erica.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we have a
maybe.
motion and a second. Is there any? Well, I guess I'll do a roll call before I do discussion. Emily,
Aye.
Erica,
Aye.
Elizabeth. That's okay. I am also an aye. We have a quorum there. So is there any discussion? Is there any typo or anything anybody wants to see changed? I didn't see anything personally. Did anyone need a little bit more time to look at them?
I found my mute button.
Did you have any
I will
comments,
try.
Elizabeth?
Nope, all good. I'm sorry. It just took me a hot second to figure out how to do that. I'm just gonna go ahead and leave myself unmuted. If you hear strange noises, I apologize.
Okay, well, it sounds like no one has any comments on the meeting minutes, so motion passes. Approved meeting minutes will become available to the public on our website on the next business day following today's meeting. We don't have any public meetings or hearings scheduled today, so there's just other business and enforcement updates. I don't know, Jessica, if you want to dive into that stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to jump to old business because Walter Kleberg and his tenant is here to discuss the activity on his property at 30 Adams Road. And yeah, they're here in person. So if we could just jump to that and then we can go
We'll
through
come back to the new
agenda.
business later. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
So I sent the letter to Walter a couple weeks ago and he gave me a call and is here tonight to just answer any questions that the commission has about the various activity. We saw pictures of over the years from the aerial photos and my site visit drive-by that I did. Walter had said that he no activity has been going on for many years, but he was more than willing to show up tonight to just answer any questions and get on the same page with the commission. So I don't know who might want to start that conversation with Walter?
Can,
Yeah, so
Okay.
just as a reminder, so the DEP drove by and saw some new vegetation clearing in potentially jurisdictional areas. We did a little desktop review and it looked like we kind of concurred with that. So yeah, if- Walter, you want to just introduce yourself and present, you know, your explanations inside of the story, that would be great.
Okay, Walt, we're the owner of Carson's Cans, and that is my property at 30 Adams Road. I believe what was seen as vegetation clearing is my tenants, a landscaper, and they do tree work, and they have been putting their wood chips in piles on the property, which we use to build up a barrier so that way we get a little bit of privacy and people don't see into the property because it's all ledge. We can't put a fence up there. But we have not been clearing anything. We've done a little bit of tree work. Dead branches hanging over cars where we park and hanging out to work areas. But we have not cleared any vegetation in years now. I bought the property approximately 4 years ago, and we brought in some TRG to put down a nice packed area that we could drive on, store our units on, and then I also paved an area for my toilets to set out the mud. But we haven't filled anything or cut any vegetation. And the only thing I can think of is that somebody had seen the wood chips in there, which come from offsite and are on the property. So I can guarantee we can take a walk up there anytime, and there's no freshly cut vegetation at all. I do stay on top of keeping the Japanese knotwood pulled out of the ground and do what I have, because that place was completely full of Japanese knotwood, and the property would have been unusable if I hadn't tended to that. So that's the only thing. But I haven't touched that in probably 3 years now. We pretty well got it beat down.
good for you.
Hey, Jessica, do you want to pull up an aerial or anything? Walter, first of all, thank you so much for coming in tonight. We really appreciate it. We
No, no
appreciate
problem.
your willingness to engage, and we always want to hear the applicant or the landowner side of the situation.
Yep.
I don't know if you're familiar with our local ordinance or the Wetlands Protection Act, but essentially not any work, but certain activities within areas that are jurisdictional, such as 100 feet from a wetland or 200 feet from a stream, are jurisdictional through either the state regulations or the local ordinance. And that includes a lot of the property. So any expansion of that laydown area, if it's within our jurisdiction, it does need to come before us for a permit. So I'm not saying that did happen. I just
Yeah.
wasn't sure if you knew that.
No, I was aware of that because I was gonna put up a building, a new shop over there. And I was in touch with the Conservation Commission and was told that I had to hire, and I looked at the cost of hiring an engineer to come in and do their evaluation of it. And by the time I got done, it would have cost me tens of thousands of dollars, and that wasn't a guarantee that I would be able to do anything. So I did buy another piece of property with an existing building on it. So the only thing I use that for is to store my porta potties.
So right now, Jessica's sharing the aerial.
Right, hold
Yeah,
on.
I saw
Can
that
you see it
pop up.
on
We
the-
saw.
You saw it popped up and now it's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There
Okay.
it is.
oh, that's right.
Yeah,
got it.
oh, good. That's great. They can
Okay.
see that over
That's great, that's great. So we're all looking at the same thing.
Okay, so what we're looking at is your parcel is outlined in pink. This
Yep.
is the aerial photo from 2019. So it shows, your cleared area. And I'm assuming porta potties. And those green lines mark 50 feet increments from the stream. And so primarily your whole parcel is in riverfront area, which is one of the jurisdictional resource areas for the commission. So anything cut down in that area is a concern of the commission. And then also 100 feet from the wetlands, which the blue kind of lake looking polygon is the wetland
Mhm.
Approximate.
approximately. Um, here's 2021. So when I drove by, what I was looking at was kind of this upper left-hand northwest portion of your lot. Because I wasn't sure if additional clearing had happened there. And I had seen some,
Excuse me, I just have one quick, you said
Yes.
the berm is what you were saying?
No,
what did
You
you
were
ask?
driving by and you noticed a berm or something you said, or?
in the upper northwest, so this area she thought clearing had happened, where like my guys parked.
Oh, that was all, that Japanese knotwood. So I
Oh,
pulled all that
okay.
out of there because it was Japanese knotwood, so I got all that out because Jared's guys needed a place to park kind of out of the way of the rest of the operation, so.
Okay,
I did that over the course of, well, before I even owned the property, actually, is when I did that, so that was years ago.
okay.
I got the knotwood out of there, and it still pops up, but we keep trimming it down.
Yeah,
Hopefully
that's, I mean, that's great. Knotwood is,
It's nasty.
it doesn't stop. Um,
But you're using it as parking now? So it's unvegetated and it's parking?
Well, that's where they park a few of the trucks, the pickup trucks from the landscape end of things.
So I can go through the photos that I took when I just drove by. Let's see.
What are the names of the roads? Because it seems like it's roads on two sides, is that correct?
Yeah, so this is the road that goes towards the mobile home park. I don't know the name of it. Do you know the name of it?
Yes, that goes towards the mobile park, and then my gate is on the left there. And you can see that tree that I spoke about, a couple of trees that were, had dead branches. That one right there was pretty dead. It's all hollowed out, so I believe Jer took his tree climber there and took some of the dead stuff
Okay.
off. And I did check with the trailer park, because we're not quite sure of where the delineation is. That's a right of way for them to get to their property, so I checked with them. And the president of the association, who actually Jeremiah knows also, he gave me a letter saying that any issues with trees that, whether it be my tree, obviously I could take care of it, or if it was theirs, he gave me permission to trim them up and to keep them so they're not a hazard to the power lines or to cars going in and out.
Okay.
So that's what we did.
Is that the road that says private road or something?
Yes, private drive, it says.
That's not-
So this was the northwest corner that I was
Yes.
just referencing. So there's a lot of logs right there. And so we were concerned that those logs were from trees on site.
No, those came, I think Jeff could answer those. Those didn't come up from on site. I believe those were from.
Yeah, those are from jobs that I got hired to remove trees. And then I actually process the wood for heat for me and my employees.
Okay. If any of the commission members want to interject at any point, just let me know.
I don't want to split hairs, but when I look at the 2019 and the 2023 aerial photos, it looks like more than just knotweed was cut down. I mean, there's definitely deciduous, at least one deciduous tree.
I don't know which tree that would be there.
It's to the west of that eastern white pine, which is really clear on the aerial.
Oh, the aerial, here, I'll get the aerials.
I don't believe,
So the pine tree is the one along the road next to the power line.
Yeah, so you can see that deciduous tree to the left there.
Oh, it went away.
yeah, we lost.
So to the west is.
I can't see a deciduous tree. I'm not real.
Yeah,
good.
right here is where she.
No, a little further to the west, Jessica.
This?
But
You
nope,
said the
to the
eastern
right.
pine, right?
No,
down
there's the
on the
pine
parcel.
tree.
Like a pine.
To the left, to the left,
Crosses in.
To the
Goes-
left of this?
no, go down, go really slow.
In the property, I think.
A little bit more, stay in that lane between the green line and the blue line, go up a little bit more to the parcel.
I don't know what she's saying.
Go to the parcel, so inside the.
You're
field,
off
Oh.
parcel.
To the left of
Yeah,
the,
right.
Let me
like in
see
the
what it-
corner, the.
Yeah,
elbow?
exactly.
Right
The corner, you got it.
So like that.
Yeah, that little.
Oh, that's
bus.
where I was.
That-
before.
that.
Okay.
There's been trees.
Okay.
cut.
It's hard for me to tell what is there.
I don't remember the tree being there.
Or, I mean, there's
Okay.
trees there, but nothing that we've cut.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is.
I mean,
the
Jared's been
blue
there for 3 years and we haven't done
This is
any
2021.
cutting at
and
all.
that's
Right.
2022, 2019.
one. So there's 2021.
I can't.
It looks pretty similar.
Yeah,
And then if
to-
you have the
similar to
2023
that.
ones,
Yeah.
Jessica, it shows the parking or
2020.
whatever is staged over there. I'm not sure what that is.
Staged.
Where are you getting the 2023?
It's
Mass Mapper?
2019 and
Oh.
2021.
Okay,
You want
yeah,
me to do a share?
yeah, sure.
Yeah, if you have the more recent one, that'd be great.
25 since the winter went away.
Okay.
Now it's back.
Okay, so this is, all right, let me start with the 2019. So I'm talking about this right here. To me, that looks like a deciduous tree with leaf off conditions. See how these all kind of looks sort of sticky? You can kind of see all of the branches. It looks just like that. There's another one over here. And that's 2019 and that's 2023. So now there's something there that's not vegetated, looks like some kind of equipment
the log.
staging or vehicle staging or something. So I
Yeah,
think that's,
there was portable toilets over there.
yeah, so I
Yeah,
think that was,
the
to go
museum
back, that was
there.
one of the first things that Jessica was explaining about in the northwest corner. It's just kind of like
Yeah.
close that loop. That's what I think she was talking about. And again, just if you look at that aerial from 2019, that looks like, to me, it looks like a deciduous tree.
No, there was no hardwood trees there that I can recall. I
Yeah,
don't,
that was before you had your toilets there, that
Yeah.
picture, and then you moved them in there.
But there was some-
Unless it was knotweed growing up and then you killed it to put.
yeah,
your
the
toilets
knotweed
in.
was 10 feet tall, so I don't, there was no hardwoods in there because I don't recall. I mean, I'm not a woodsman, so I don't cut trees.
Would be a lot of effort just to park toilets on stumps.
Yeah,
But I do know there's a lot of knotweed that comes up in there now
Yeah,
currently
right.
from the past.
Yeah.
But since I moved in, Walt moved those toilets, so I got the space.
So it's hard to verify. We're just interpreting an aerial photo at this point.
No, we understand.
You know, we can go in, it'd be nice actually, maybe if we could just take a walk together. We might be able to get a little bit more sense of the history of it. We can see where the knotweed are, now, so that'll help establish that area. But I can see your concerns, Kristen. I can see why there's the shadow. It does look like there's branches, and it's hard for me to tell whether that's where the location of that tree is or would have been if it is a tree. But I see.
Yeah, and it just, again, going back between 2019, again, that's 2019, that's 2023. So you can see this area is definitely expanded
Yeah,
between those dates.
yeah, that's another. So the general area, the more like V-shaped, does seem like it's been just sort of, little the edges.
And just to confirm, this is just a state data layer, this wetland and this streamline. This hasn't been actually ground truthed or delineated, so we're just sort of roughing this out. I mean, this could be bigger, it could be smaller, we don't really know. We're just going on a desktop assessment here. So if you do want to expand, I think your first step would be to get a delineation done and then come before us with a permit.
yeah, I think we're pretty much, we're where we have to be. There's no reason I'm not growing my business anymore. I've already got plenty of toilets and I'm 70 and I'm looking to retire, so
Yeah.
it's, what's done there is done there.
So there's no intent to change it from how it is now.
No,
No.
absolutely not. No.
No,
I mean, we may bring in a little bit of hard pack because we get a little bit of mud starting up from the vehicle being in there. And, we bring in probably 10, 15 ton of hardtack from Mackins. And we'll spread that. I have a box for our tractor. I can spread that and then we've
Right.
got a,
well, I dig it all up, plow the place. so
Well,
that way it
I
flattened.
think the point is though, if you want to make this, if you want to convert this from pervious surface area to impervious surface area for staging and parking, that would require a permit if it's in jurisdiction.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got all the parts we need now. So.
So again, just, I don't know what these things are, but
Our screen went black.
that's also pretty new. And so it's, when you expand further to the west, that's more concerning than expanding further to the east.
Yeah, we don't have any screen to look at anything here. I can't see that screen. I tell you, honestly, it'd be so much easier if somebody or mostly people want to come over and walk in with me and look at it. I can't really see anything on the screen here.
Oh gosh, because you're looking at the iPad, right? You don't have the TV.
Yeah,
So
we
this is
don't-
another
Yeah, I don't
distance
have
there? Okay. I understand. I'll stop sharing. Okay.
No, that's okay. I'm just showing them a larger screen.
Yeah, so I missed everything what she was talking about over the last. Yeah.
Kristen, if you are still sharing, do you mind going back to, is this 2019?
No, this is 2023. Here, I'll
Yeah.
click on 2019 again. So
Yeah. go back to
So yeah, I was
the
looking
other
at those vehicles over here, so that was or vegetated before, and now it's expanded and vegetated,
that-
unvegetated. and
That
staged.
whole area there was simply tall grass and stuff, what that was at one time, so,
But still, you've got, what are those Connex boxes or?
yes.
Correct, yeah, that's my
Yeah, so
stuff.
it's not like a, you know,
That's temporary storage for my stuff.
can you move them to the other side of the lot?
That's my area that I need to work with my toilets over there.
It's also all ledge. There's no
Yeah,
flat
there's
land.
ledge. If you could visually look at it, you'll know why it's set up the way it is. There's no other way to do it than what we've done. It's virtually.
Well, I guess
impossible.
our issue isn't that you did it, it's that you did it without coming to us for a permit, because it's in jurisdiction.
Okay, all right, well, whatever I have to do, I mean, if I have to pay for a permit after the fact, because I know I thought I did everything right, because I had all the town building inspector and everybody over. They dictated where the fence had to go. They told me everything, and I wasn't aware of anything to do with conservation until I started asking the town engineer about putting a building up there, and that's when I said, okay, well, we've got to be very careful about it, because it's all, basically the whole property is under conservation. So that's when I said, we can't change anything from here on.
Well, that's debatable if we issue an enforcement order, but I mean,
If, I'm just reviewing the process, if he got a permit to put up the fence, that means that it got signed off on by probably the conservation agent at the time.
oh, that's true. And also when somebody files for a building permit or something, doesn't it come to Concom as part of, like, doesn't it go to all town
It
agents?
goes through the conservation agent and they decide whether or not the COMCOM needs to be involved. So
That's a
what
good
probably
point.
happened was whoever the agent was at the time probably was like, oh, it's just a fence, and then just signed off on it and didn't involve the COMCOM.
Yeah, because I did everything by the books. I checked with all the town engineers, building inspector, the water department. I mean, I had people coming and going all the time, and everything was dotted. They changed, actually, the building inspector changed my plans from a
Yeah. It sounds
50
like,
from a $34,000 small little water barn where I bought the electric and water into, and because of his changes to the plans, it cost me $56,000.
it
Because he
sounds like you
changed it
did
from being just
everything.
a pad to, I mean, they gave me an okay. I had it written down that it was okay to put just a pad here.
Yeah,
Then he came in and said, you need frost walls, you need this, you need that, and that was a very bad experience. That's one of the other reasons I decided not to put a
Yeah.
building up there, because I had to deal with the building inspector who really just gave my builders all kinds of trouble, and I just, I can't do it anymore in Greenfield, because it just put
Yeah.
a very bad taste in my mouth.
yeah. Well, it does sound like you went through the proper process.
I did everything
As
that.
far as
I
it
could pull it.
coming across the conservation agent's desk. So I think the main takeaway now is like, if anything else, you wanted to do anything else moving forward.
Believe me, after listening to this, I won't take a shovel to anything unless I talk to you guys first. I just, I'm here in town to run a business to make money, not to cause aggravation to the town or to anybody else around there. I think, if anybody wanted to talk to Patrick, who's the president of the trailer park, I check with them all the time. I always go walking around, picking up trash outside the fence. I try to keep my property. And that's what I told Jeremiah when he came in. I said, what I do here is I always try to keep everything in tip top shape, because if you give somebody something to complain about, you're gonna run into problems. So I walk the Adams Road side. I guess I was gonna try to cut some of those little whips that are in front of my property on the Adams Road, but if I do that, I'll call you guys first. Because it's basically just sprouts that come in place of what was, that was all the Japanese, that one.
Which side is that on?
That
over
is-
Here?
That's right here. This whole piece right here, this little triangle
So-
piece.
East
I
side of
think
the
that's the area that is furthest away from.
Yeah.
Yes, it's the furthest away, right?
Because there's a small little slice of the property that's.
But,
not
well,
in-
that, again, I would check with you guys before I even put my weed whacker. Because
Okay.
you say, okay, you can do to this point, I'll do it. If not, I'll just let it be. It just looks yucky to me.
You guys are so constrained
Right.
that it's nice to get another eye on, so you make sure you know you're doing. the
Right,
thing.
and if I do it, I mean, I don't have a problem leaving it the way it is. The only thing is, and Garrett, everybody can tell you, that I'm pretty anal about having a nice appearance on my property, whether it be in Turner's on Turnpike Road, my shop over there, or in my home property. Everything has to be prim and proper and look good. I don't like scraggly looking. And, you know, when I drive through the industrial park and I see all the other commercial businesses in there that have nice grass growing on the in front of the berms and down into little water catch areas, you know, I'm trying to get my place to that. So that may fall to my son down the road because I'm supposed to be retiring here in the next few months. So
Well, congratulations.
yeah, it's about time, almost 70. It's time to
Yeah.
stop working 7 days a week. So
Oh, yeah.
Is that little corner edge there, where the little white dots are, is that in jurisdiction?
Yes.
those were toilets that were there.
The northwestern end,
Yeah,
where there's the arm.
is there any, I mean, those are portable toilets, right? So there's a portable toilet?
Portable toilets right
Do
there.
they have chemicals in them?
Excuse me?
Do they have chemicals in them?
No, they're completely empty.
They're completely
Matter of
empty?
fact, those are the ones that I had there that were used ones. When I first started business, I couldn't afford to buy brand new toilets. So I bought a bunch of used toilets from New Jersey, New York, from other companies that basically had toilets that were falling apart. I repaired them and I used those for a number of years. I've got almost all, but maybe a dozen sold now. But I've sold to other companies, other new companies that have sprung up since COVID started. And all my toilets are new toilets, but when they're in my yard, there is no chemical.
Okay,
You know,
so
there may be a
there's
little bit of water and it comes down the vent shaft.
Okay.
But there's
There's
nothing inside of them.
nothing leaching.
I don't even
Is there-
leave the sanitizers in them or anything. We strip them completely down. The paper's taken out. So when they're in my yard,
Yeah, they're clean.
they're
Can
pretty, yeah.
you move them to some other part of your yard? Do they
Those,
have to be
those
so
toilets
close?
aren't there anymore.
They're not there anymore?
No, man, those toilets are not there. There's about half a dozen or so, I think 8 or 10 toilets that are farther down away from that drive. I could move those if necessary, but again,
Yeah, to the east,
there's nothing in them.
like
so-
over here where it's outside of.
That's all land, that's all land. We can't put anything there. If you look at it, that's red rock ledge. You cannot dig into it. There's not a flat spot on it. There's nothing you could do with that property. That's why I kind of went away from putting that building because you cannot, I mean, if you want to spend $500,000 blasting that ledge out to do something with it, you can, but I don't. I mean, my business is very well. I don't have $500,000 to remove ledge from my property there.
Right, but what she's saying, these are all gone in that corner, which is correct.
Yes, they're all done. They're
Yeah,
not there.
exactly. That's what she's saying. So those have been moved.
Yeah.
And you won't put more back over there? That
No,
area is
no,
going to be,
No, no,
okay,
Those
thank you.
are gone.
And no future staging over here?
nope.
Okay, that's good.
I mean, obviously the knotweed gets kept up with, but
Yeah.
that's about it, because that stuff just takes over.
I guess.
Yeah.
Well, do we want to suggest a site visit so we can just have walked it
I'm-
with you?
I'm-
It's,
more
I
than
mean, I
happy.
think you'll
We're all
understand it more once you see it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Same page?
Absolutely. Just let me know. Just allow me a little bit of flexibility because in the last couple days, things have taken off.
Oh.
We've been in our winter mode.
Yeah.
It's kind of my little bit of a kind of almost vacation time during the winter.
Mhm.
But the phone's blowing apart. Rec department in Conway needs their toilets and
Of course.
Deerfield will be calling me in a few days and then, Snow's, the Sugarloaf nursery down there needs their toilets. So we gotta get rolling on this stuff. So, and we're down one person right now, so we gotta make another hire. So it's basically myself and my one driver and then my son is part-time right now. So he's coming up full-time another month. But we're gonna be real busy getting our trucks ready, because we've been running a salt solution, a brine solution for the winter time, so the toilets don't freeze. And I've got about 2 weeks worth of work to get the trucks all hooked up to the water pumps now on the trucks, fresh water and such. Do away with the brine and get going to fresh water. So, if someone tells me and says, okay, can we meet you like say on Wednesday or Thursday or something to that effect, and say, you gotta meet us at 7:00 on a Tuesday, it just might not work, because I might be up in Covington delivering toilets.
I'll shoot you an email and just throw out a few times and we'll see if we can.
Yeah, I'm pretty
in on it.
flexible right now. I can move stuff back and forth, but if we wait 2 or 3 weeks, I'll be losing my mind by then. You probably won't want to be around.
So sooner than later.
The sooner is better.
For the both, 'cause I'm starting to get started up too. so
Right,
they're
Okay.
both gonna be great.
Okay.
And again, we haven't, everything's been covered in snow, so we haven't done what is obviously our spring cleanup, and we haven't taken some of the, things that we brought in the fall time and, usually I go through and clean up any kind of metal pipe and stuff that's around there. So, but they'll give you the general lay, probably much better than looking at this here. So,
Okay. Yeah, I'll shoot you an email and we'll lock in a time in the next week.
absolutely, not a problem.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Great.
Thank you for coming.
Great.
Okay, so we're all set now? And we're not going to jail. I guess we did good.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for coming in.
Thank
Yeah.
you all.
Better than some landowners that just give us the virtual middle finger. Do you want to jump back to new business, Jessica? Or
Yeah,
do you wanna keep on
Elizabeth
old business?
just showed up.
Oh, okay.
Let me just,
I can go anywhere. Grab a chair, pull it up.
no, it's this.
I was listening to all of this stuff and I'm psyched that I'm not excited to visit with those guys. The other thing that I wanted to mention is I would love to see the records of whoever had their hands all over that. Because it sounded to me, from what I was able to hear, that a lot of people were involved and none of them. None of them
Dramatic sprawl.
appropriately addressed the consequences.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, this, it's kind of been an ongoing problem that the building inspector gives permission for things and doesn't necessarily.
The other thing is, how does a fence morph into land clearing? They had permission for a fence. They cleared land that's beyond a fence. So I still have questions about this.
But also, but didn't he say he's only owned it for 4 years?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So maybe,
I mean, that makes sense that a lot of that happened with the previous owner because it's 2025. He's only owned it for 4 years. Yeah,
So that's entirely possible. Yeah, especially Chris, I was able to see that back and forth you were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
but that was,
stunning,
that was
but
2019.
2019, yeah.
that was-
yeah, so I can do a little paper trail.
And
Yeah, I've got 2021 to 2023 as well, and that's when the majority of the work happened, between 2021 and 2023.
Yeah. Yeah.
and I can
So
see-
if he bought it in 2022,
Yeah.
which is 4 years ago, then it's still him.
Well, and the other thing too, unless they have ground stumps, if we go do a site visit, it'll be really obvious
Mhm.
if they got rid
Yeah.
of trees. Cause the stumps wouldn't have deteriorated in that
Right,
short amount of time,
yeah,
at least not to that point.
but the other guy does do work, tree work.
I mean, I don't think that,
Yeah,
He would have stuff out here.
or there won't be anything to see because it's underneath all those piles of staged logs.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know if we need to ask for a after the fact permit, but there could be some potential restoration opportunity there if, in fact, a site visit does turn into an actual enforcement.
Well, and I think he was talking about, well, if it gets money, I'm gonna bring in a bunch of fill.
That's what I heard.
That was like,
You can't do that.
I think it might be important to just be really clear with him that, you did unauthorized activities. We're looking at you for possible enforcement. You can't do anything in jurisdiction without,
I think it's pretty
Permit.
important that we establish the timeline, because we don't know what was done by this folks. Some of the things seemed like they were clear, like where they were storing things along the more southern western portion. It looks like it pushed out into the area that hadn't been cleared. That the last two pictures showed that pretty clearly. But I would really want to know, when did they buy the property? And at this point, the most important thing is to keep anything further from happening. And then to see if there's any particular things that seem like they're impinging on the wetlands.
Mhm.
And then see what we can do. I think it was a good idea if there's any remediation that can be done, but. People did sign off, even if it wasn't done to the letter of the law. He did go through the process.
That's not on him, yeah.
So that's not,
well,
on-
he got a fence
Mhm.
permit.
Who did
Yeah.
you talk to about
That's
that?
just for a fence. That's not for all this clearing over here and these Connex boxes, like this is 2021. That's 2023. That's a
Yeah.
really big footprint change.
Yeah, that's true.
That wasn't what he filed a permit for. He filed a permit for a fence.
Well,
which
we know he
depends
filed a
on-
permit for the fence. We're not sure if he
Okay.
did or didn't. But like the other thing is there's no legal grounds past 2 years for the Concom.
I'm
So-
actually taking that, so I can't come to the April 15th class because, Concom meeting, because I'm taking a class on enforcement, because I didn't know that, and I really want to learn more about that. Just if that's true, and we would lose on appeal, but that doesn't mean we can't ask for something.
Also, you won't miss any because it's like the first day of April is on a Tuesday, so the actual meeting is the 8th.
Oh,
And then, yeah, so you're all good.
oh, wait a second, let me update my calendar. I didn't know that.
That sure makes it easy.
Is this- Wait, what? Wait, the
Yeah.
first Tuesday, oh yeah, so the first Tuesday is a first.
And
Oh,
then
so
the
it's
8th,
the 8th.
yeah,
Ah, I was mixed up. Thank you.
yeah.
So,
So-
can I, oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, so I also think we just need to make sure that someone needs to spell out that he really can't just bring in. I know he thinks he's doing like a good thing, but
Yeah.
you can't just bring in fill.
Yeah.
Even though you think you're,
Yeah.
taking care of the mud or whatever.
Right.
Well, I wasn't even sure what he was talking about, like what kind.
Yeah.
Was he
said
talking about
something-
gravel?
He said he was getting from Mackin, which is a quarry.
Mhm.
It's like a gravel.
Gravel,
Okay.
yeah, so.
You
but
mean the hard
we
pack
just
that he was
need to
talking
be
about?
Clear about what he can and can't. Because he keeps talking about that he didn't clear anything, didn't clear any trees, didn't clear any trees. It's not just trees. It's-
Yeah,
You can't do anything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would suggest that we start with a site visit, but when we go to do that site visit, we have even like a list of things that are like, love that you're taking care of the knotweed.
Right.
You can't put in a lawn.
Mhm.
Right,
You
we
have
did
to
talk
put-
about wanting it to look very neat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
vegetation
Yeah.
conversion is not invasive species management. And remember, you will remember this, Erica, we really got on an applicant before for doing invasive species management without a permit. Over on,
That's interesting
That's-
because that is one of the allowed, sort of exempted activities.
but we really got on an applicant, they were on Country Club Road. Do you remember this, Erica?
Yeah, the ones, they were like in a farm or whatever.
They had like a driveway that had a bridge.
Oh, okay, yeah, that one. Okay.
And I was really new, so I wasn't really involved in it, but Travis was like, no, you really gotta let us know when you're doing invasive species management. And so I thought like, especially if you're using, I don't know, if maybe they were hand pulling
Yeah,
everything. I don't know why we wanted notification.
Planting and invasives removal are two of the things that have more leeway.
Right.
Unless it's in rare species habitat. Let's just check that really quick.
But have you looked at that layer?
No, I'm pulling it
it's
up right
not,
now.
it's
Oh,
not
good.
Okay.
there.
Okay, good.
I mean, we have had people come before us to discuss their, getting
Yep.
good input, yeah, before
There was the
they go
one
do
that
it.
had
There's
the
one by the river and there's one,
bittersweet and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever that was at.
there's one doing it in Highland Park, she came in first.
Yep.
I think one of the things that probably is what happened here is even if they weren't intentionally trying to grab more space, having tenants, needing more room, they just, it seems like they got pushed out. Like now there's things that are being stored that are
Yeah.
beyond the sort of parking area. And so then you just kind of think, oh, well, if they're stored there, then that's what we've been using. So you just kind of push yourself.
There's a visual barrier.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
it might be helpful, I think, for us to talk with them, figure out what the actual areas of where it's already sort of improved.
Mhm.
And I don't know if they could flag it or they could have markers or something so that they can have something so that they know, really, you can't push past this. Anything beyond this, any activities beyond this, even if it's just mowing or you wanna
But those mulch piles there.
yeah.
Yeah, mulch
exactly.
piles, mowing, Connex box storage, toilet storage, all of it, it counts as impacts.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure they're not seeing it that way.
I think that's really good,
Property
Yeah.
that Nobody talked to them
Emily.
about the fact that it was in the.
I know,
Like
it's
90%
literally his whole
And
property,
resource
like that.
area.
He buys it to like have his business and
Yeah,
And it made me nervous when I first said chemical pellets. I'm like,
Yeah, that was a good question, Erica.
I'm like,
Yep.
it's like leaching into the.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so have a list of these things that we want to make sure that they
they
don't
understand.
exacerbate.
Yeah.
And then can, like, and here are the things that you can do to like make us happy.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is I'd love to know, I'd love to see the documentation and who signed off on these things. I realized that I would be whistling in the wind.
Just for curiosity.
I mean, it could have been for Eric. Eric wanted to just.
Yeah. And the activities might have sounded so minor that they didn't put any red flags, but when you
if you look at the
put it all
fence,
together.
Is that?
like this is the old one, but this is where the fence goes and
The fence is really
that's actually outside.
outside.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so
Do you want to share that? I
Yeah.
don't, I'm sharing my screen, but let me stop. So, but the fence was for a fence, not a limit of disturbance. So I feel like once you have a fence, you think of it as a limit of disturbance,
Where
but
the parking was,
Mhm.
so it's totally separate.
But is that the?
Yeah,
that's the
so-
Entire fence?
no, I think the fence, so can you see my cursor?
yeah.
It comes down like this and then it just like is on this like ridge thing. And it
So
is
it's
a
not even on the
ridge,
west
like,
side?
like the road is lower than up here. And then I think it goes back down. So like, that's what he was talking about. Like he couldn't really store things because I think there's like a hill.
Oh,
But it goes like here down, like by the side of the road. So,
So
you
depending
know,
how
it's,
far it
yeah,
goes.
depending on how far it goes, it's like, well, a lot of it is outside the riverfront area.
and again, it's a fence. It's not like all that stuff that's over on the west side is not fence related. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
conversion of land and storage of potentially unsafe materials, like, I mean,
Yeah, do we know what's in the boxes? I mean, obviously, of course we don't, because it's somebody's private stuff, but.
or if they're properly,
Boxes now, the landscaping. equipment?
Yeah, so there's like.
Oh, those storage boxes.
the Connex
Yeah,
boxes.
that seemed like that was, that seemed like it was the landscaping guys. stuff
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, are they properly stored on blocks or like, or is there secondary containment? Does there, I don't know. There's a lot of questions. So I feel like I think that'd be good. Let's do a site walk.
Yeah,
and
so in
then-
the next week, I'll email him right away, but, is there any times that any of you all could go in the next week? What do you mean? You seem totally like, easy breezy.
Tuesday's bad, Monday's better, Wednesday's the 26th.
That's 2 weeks away from.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong week.
Yeah, he would like in the next week.
Yeah, well, yeah, because the busy season is on us.
Not-
So
What about like Friday,
This Friday?
the 14th?
14th? Do an early morning, like 8, 9, 10?
I get in at 9, so like sometime between 9 and 10. You can do it. What about you guys?
I could probably maybe do 9. I have a dentist appointment at 8, so I'm not quite sure when that'll
Okay.
wrap up. But I could probably do 9:30.
Okay.
Kristen?
I can't do it. I'm in the field on that day. I'm in Townsend and Ashburnham and New Salem.
What about you, Erica?
Yeah, I should be able to.
9. All right, so I'll aim for 9:30.
That's safe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I'll email him, see what he says. Okay. That's that.
Cool. Liz, you want to take over or you want me to keep going?
It's probably,
the-
I guess I
Do
can
you
do
want
that.
that?
Oh, you get it printed. All right.
So we just skipped to his, we haven't tackled anything else.
We'll come back to new business. Hi.
All right. All right, where are we at here? All right, so we skipped over.
You have to go back to new business.
All right, cool.
We
So new
skipped it.
business, Resilient Deerfield River Watershed Coalition. Resilient DRW, agent to inform the commission about creation of the Resilient DRW future meetings and timeline.
Have you guys heard of this?
Nope.
Have you heard of it?
Resilient Greenfield, is that what it is? or-
Resilient, Deerfield River water, no, yeah, river water.
River water.
Resilient Deerfield River Watershed Coalition.
I may have heard of it.
Okay.
I feel like I've been in a meeting or two, but it hasn't
Okay.
been for a while.
So the FRCOG, FERCOG, applied for an MVP grant and they got it for over $645,000.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and they came up with this whole document, a framework, it's called a Framework for Resilience, Responding to Climate Change in the Deerfield River Watershed. And so now they're creating a coalition with at least one representative from all 14 towns in the watershed. And they reached out to Greenfield and I was suggested, and so now I'm the.
In all your focus.
So now I am the representative for Greenfield. So I want to just let you guys know that that's going on. So let me just read you a little like synopsis. So Resilient, sorry. Resilient DRW will be identifying opportunities to work cooperatively across town boundaries, build local and watershed scale resilience, and prioritize recommendations from the Framework for Resilience. They will onboard a consultant team to develop a regional flood model for the Deerfield River watershed. This will be the first watershed scale flood model developed in Western Massachusetts. It will be similar to the one that was developed for the Charles River watershed, which is, there's a link that I can provide. Actually, it's in the,
Is it in the agenda?
it's in the folder under Resilient DRW, go to summary. And then you click that. And it's actually really cool. They have kind of this active kind of like Mass Mapper kind of thing where you can like zoom in and see different levels of flooding, like where the boundaries would be for on the map. So yeah, they want to do that for here. Whoa. This will help FERCOG and the 14 towns in Deerfield River watershed prioritize and coordinate flood resiliency efforts across municipalities and use nature-based solutions at the watershed scale. So the other thing this Charles River flood model has is I haven't like explored it too much, but on the video, they've made like an educational video about it. It said that you can like click different nature-based solutions layers and it impacts where the flooding
That's great.
edges are. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that this is the first meeting is next week, March 20th. They're going to meet every 4 to 6 weeks for approximately 15 meetings between now and January 2020, June 2026, which is the end of the term of the grant.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's that. Want to let you know.
Awesome.
Kristen, do you
Well,
remember-
FERCOG is great. So have you worked with them before?
Not really.
They're awesome. You're gonna love it. You're gonna have a
Kristen,
great time.
remember, were you here when they did a mapping project? They came and presented it? I don't know if you were-
I'm not, I don't remember. I've worked with them on a few projects
Was it
outside of the
green?
commission,
Was
but
that was it green? Okay, I thought it was a Deerfield. I know that, yeah, they did a map.
Okay.
Maybe it was a Deerfield. I don't remember. It was like historical mapping of like where it had been and then once the dams came, what it changed to and.
Oh, neat.
oh, I don't remember that. That must have been before me.
Forget which one.
Yeah,
It was
I
really fascinating.
was trying to figure out if there was any data of the extent of the floodwaters for Hurricane Irene, which I think was probably the most
Mhm.
extreme flooding, right, in this
Yeah.
area.
Mhm.
Wasn't living here, but I know there was like a few flooding events, at least in Vermont, so.
That was the-
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah,
Flooded, up to the,
Yeah.
in Shelburne Falls, the water was up to the Bridge of Flowers. And I don't know if
That's
you've been there
crazy.
recently, but it's like 30 feet down.
Yeah.
And a couple.
It's insane. I saw some, yeah. Oh, no, that's so sad.
And then that was the farms from up,
Yeah.
got
up
the
the
walk,
country.
not just roots, but, the one in Conway,
Naturally,
natural roots, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Propane tanks and canoes and
Mhm.
porta johns that were floating down the
Yeah.
river. It was
It's
insane.
Barton Cove, you see that one? It was like,
No.
It was just walls were just like
Everywhere.
jammed up.
And that's the one that ended Wedgewood Gardens, right?
Must have been.
Cause
I
I
wasn't
know
living
the,
in
I know the
Vermont
part
at
got
the
flooded.
time.
What year was that?
Was it 2010 or
2011, it's 2011. Irene.
Oh, no, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
maybe, yeah, okay.
It was the year I got married.
Well, it
I
could
should
be-
remember.
Yeah, maybe it was. that was kind of-
12, 10, 11, yeah.
So I can like keep you guys updated, or I don't know if it makes sense to update you after every time there's a meeting, just kind of keep you updated, or we could check back in,
I think,
like,
I think it
if
makes
I
sense
think
if
there's
you-
something significant,
Yes.
yeah,
precisely.
okay.
Moving on. Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commission's conference review. Emily Box and the agents attended annual MAPC conference on March 1st and will briefly discuss the sessions attended and any relevant takeaways for the commission.
I had such a good time there.
It was.
I gotta
great.
say, I was like, it's been a while since I've been to a conference that, it's just inspiring and really, yeah, it leaves you like just feeling like hopeful. So,
Yeah.
Yes.
So many people working on the same thing. It's really well organized too. They've
Yeah.
had it picked up
Yeah.
for a while. I went last year with Travis, so I was glad because I could figure out how to get to that parking lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had a hard time. I was like on the backside. I'm like, how do I get up to the thing?
But it's a good time. Still have to submit my reimbursement, so
Yes,
I'll
yeah.
scan that all, just send it.
Yeah, so I was gonna ask you that because Kristen also had a question just about if all MAC events are
Oh, yeah.
reimbursable, which I believe they are, but we'll talk about like our bank accounts later on in this meeting and how much money is where and stuff like that, so.
Did you want us to quickly talk about the ones? There's one particular one I really want to talk about.
Yeah, like,
But I want
yeah.
to summarize.
You want to.
I went to one on the biodiversity goals for Massachusetts. That's a report that's coming out very soon. And it seems like it'll be a really useful tool to sort of assess the vulnerabilities and issues. So one that comes out, I encourage us to take a look at it and see how it reflects on our work.
That could be something that we could apply to our properties.
Yeah. And I went to a long workshop on soils, Massachusetts and wetlands, and that was fascinating. It was Al Averill, who's been in the USGS Forest Service, not forest, but soils for a long time. And his work helping bring in local soils, local farm soils of local importance has been stopped right now, unfortunately, due to all of the cutbacks.
Wait, he's bringing in the soils?
He is basically, when towns opt to have soils of local importance be included and assessed and included in things like, when you're looking at seeing if the land can be conserved under an APR. He's the one who does the work, or he's one of the people. And so it's not a difficult process. If we ever want to opt into that, we can, if they continue the program.
Right.
And it just basically, they take a look at the land that's being farmed, and even if it doesn't pop up on the prime farm soils layer or the state significant ones, they can be added if it seems like they're of importance here. So that's all. It doesn't mean they can't be, it doesn't change what you can do on them. It just means that they're more eligible and they're more, you can make more arguments to protect that land. So. And the third one I did was ABCs are issuing tickets to wetland violators. Yeah, that-
Is that the one you want to talk about?
Yes.
Yeah.
well,
Okay.
the ones-
The ones I went to, well, I also went to the biodiversity talk. I went to supporting land conservation through DCS grants, protecting and restoring aquatic and terrestrial connectivity, and Pollinate Now bioregional strategy for habitat restoration.
Great topics.
They were so good. I loved it. Yeah, why don't you?
All right, so I have a ticket in my hand. I don't know if you can see it, people at home, Kristen. And I know that Travis has done some research as well. Like he may have, you know, taken this workshop in the past. When we went up last time, we chatted about it. And I think I emailed him, but maybe I didn't, or maybe he didn't see my email, but I just wanted to touch base with him to see, because I knew he did some of the research. So what I learned was that it's not like you have to get these tickets from the state. That is one of the things that's in our way right now. We don't have a pad. We don't actually have the tickets. And in order to write someone a ticket, you know, there's a process. It's not us who does it. Actually, it's us who does it. Our agent would do it, but then it would be delivered by a police officer to the person who is being, and who's a violation. You have to make sure you dot all your i's and cross all your t's. You have to fill it out appropriately. And, but you have to have this and it has to be in carbon copy. So there's like a pink version, the yellow page, and the white page goes to the violator. And one stays with us. One has to go to the town clerk as well, and there's timeframes by which they all have to get to everybody. And one has to go to the county magistrate. They're the ones who eventually would call the person who violated to court. And they have a certain period of time to either respond or appeal. And if they don't, then they're, yeah. So, but if we don't have this pad, none of that can happen. A few other things while I'm thinking about it, as it's falling into my head. I did take notes, but I'm just going by my memory here. Basically, as long as it's within the statute of limitations for whatever the thing was, every day is another violation.
Is there a dollar value associated?
It would
with that?
be the dollar value that we are able to assess is in our bylaws. So if our bylaws don't have any, don't give us any power to enforce by dollars, then we don't have any. It's not in the state regs. The state regs put a cap on it. It can't be more than $300 per day. But so we have to go through our bylaws. I'm sorry that I haven't done that. I should.
No, it's fine. I think I read what was on our city website under the bylaw because I was trying to understand if we can collect money for NOIs, for local NOIs, and it doesn't seem like there's anything about.
The money doesn't come back to us because they pay a fee.
We did talk about
State
that,
and to the state.
by the way, a while ago,
Yeah.
Jessica, and we decided not to because we didn't want to discourage people from filing because we're always dealing with people who
Oh, I see.
didn't file.
We did, citizens, businesses still have to file, but
Oh.
we didn't, remember contractors and stuff still needed to.
So
Yeah,
there's
and we
no
never made
fee
any
for
changes.
NOI?
Right.
There's no fee listed in the verbiage that I can find.
For like actual citizens, because it was so expensive, we figured they were just gonna try and do it behind our back.
Yep.
Wow,
Rather than coming before us and just explain what they want to do.
Okay,
But people like contractors and stuff,
yeah.
We can still talk about that.
yeah, that doesn't match my understanding of how it works. I thought that there were based on what it was for the NOI, there are certain categories. I
There,
just went through
there
this
is
here.
for the state, but if it's a local NOI.
I think,
there-
Emily, so when you
Not
file a
only
notice of
the
intent under the
DEP.
State Wetlands Protection Act, a portion of it goes to the city and a portion of it goes to the state. But
Exactly.
some local bylaws or ordinances have additional fees, like it's $50 to file an RDA in Hadley, but it's free in Greenfield.
Oh, an RDA. Oh,
Yeah,
never
and
want
some
anybody to
towns
have
have
to
like
pay for an
additional
RDA.
NOI
You would never get
fees
anything done.
for the town.
Okay,
Like,
and
I
so
think
then.
Sturbridge maybe
So
you
what's
file
our
like,
schedule? So we
Um,
really,
So the ordinance, I'm just looking it up online, Christian. Whoa, I don't know what's going on there.
Okay.
Okay. So I look application of fees. So basically, for sure. So this is the ordinance on our city website, and there's an application of fees section, and it talks about there's like one spot that talks about fees, and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to just like find it right off the bat.
we don't
Oh,
charge
oh,
ordinance
the-
fees.
The fees have to do with if we have to hire a consultant
Third party
for
review.
them. So like if it's to delineate a wetland or something, we will request a payment.
Third party reviews are like, say we get an NOI, it's really complicated, we're just volunteers. We don't have time to read a 500-page NOI with detailed engineering plans and stormwater modeling and all kinds of stuff. So we would, on the applicant's behalf, they would have to pay for it.
Yeah,
For a
okay.
third party review of our choosing. And they would give us comments like, hey, they filed this incorrectly, or they really need to up their protections for whatever, or this doesn't match the performance standards or stuff like that. It helps us with our review. That's what that is.
Right, okay, exactly. So then, but there's absolutely nothing in here that says anything about collecting money
For enforcement.
for an NOI
Oh.
for like when it doesn't involve the state. So if it's, an intermittent stream.
Yeah.
so what you're saying is because Greenfield has a bylaw that makes, gives protections above and beyond the state regulated water bodies. If the NOI is particularly for something that's only a jurisdiction because of the bylaw.
Yeah,
We don't charge them.
correct.
fees. Okay, but if they're doing a standard NOI,
Then we
that's
get,
our normal
yeah,
jurisdictional, then it's all the normal.
yes.
But those are fees that are those are Wetlands Protection Act fees. We do get a portion of them, but those are state fees. Mandated by the state under the state regulations. We
Yes,
get a
the
portion of them.
The
Okay,
state
but
gets some and
that's
then
commonly
we
what you
get
would
part.
encounter. So people are paying for NOIs if they're under the standard state regulations.
Yeah,
Yes.
which is why I was like, well, why don't we collect them locally? Because if they're still having to do it for the state, like what's the difference?
It does
It
make
just
more
seems like another
fun.
source of money.
We can talk about that. I think put that on an agenda and we can talk because we have gone in circles about that. I know we've talked about that before when we talked about revising the bylaw or the ordinance. I mean,
So then that kind of circles back to this ticket, like, can we get the
The
ticket
ticket,
to,
so what,
bring in
what
money.
I was given to understand from this class, and I've, got the contact information, we could go back to those folks if need be. Was that the place we get this from is the police here in town. So it's basically very much like writing a ticket for parking or, any kind of normal civil fine. But it has this language that refers to our laws, the state laws and the local laws. The local bylaw. So, what they said was, yeah, you just go talk to the cops. And that sounds really much harder than they made it sound to me.
yeah.
And then he said, typically the police work with a printer who knows who has the appropriate paper and does everything. And then they just make the paper, they basically, when they're doing an order, you add on, or you have them do it. And so that's why I want to talk to Travis. I'm pretty sure that when he talked about it, he said, yeah, it sounded so easy, but then, so I don't know what the.
I think that was
is.
the hold up, I think.
Yeah.
Was going through, I mean, that's just a matter
It's
of
just finding
calling a
the person
non-emergency
that's
line and being
police.
like.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like difficult. So I want to find out how far along in this Travis got, and then I'd be happy to pick up the trail.
Okay.
And I live within walking distance of the police station, so I could just go over there.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
walking there like being in
In person
person
would be
is the
And
way to
especially
go.
having that paper in hand.
Yeah, I've got
Yeah.
this in
Yeah.
hand. I might even call the people who ran that session and walk it through with them so that I have it really fresh in my mind. So
Yeah.
I can say, this is what they do in this town, and this is what I can get to understand. And even, it might even be useful to call somebody in Deerfield or, like somebody else nearby. If they also have done this, that way, like, because a lot of times when you're dealing with the bureaucracy, if nobody has done it before, it's as though you cannot do it. So I feel like knowing as much as possible going in would be helpful too.
Yeah.
So I'll try and follow up on that.
Right on. You need that.
Thank you.
And then, so that whole per day thing, you have to write one per day.
Oh,
Right, that was the other thing, because it falls to.
to me.
You have to write one
But we
per
did,
day.
but we did talk about maybe we would rotate it, each person would have to write one.
And then
So
within a minimum of 15 days, you have to get them to the magistrate and to the town clerk.
So
And
each
they
day
have
you've
to
gotta
receive
write.
them at those times. So it's much better to take them in person, because if you mail them to court, then it'll probably just like sit on somebody's desk and disappear. And so if
So-
we ever get into this situation,
Yeah.
we really want to have a playbook that we are
Yeah.
going
Okay.
by so that we know exactly who needs to do it. And they also said you want to have a relationship with that clerk, the magistrate,
Yes.
and have talked to the town clerk. I think it's the town clerk that you goes to. So you want to put faces, let them know who you are, make sure, bring them cookies, whatever it takes so that they
Yeah.
Yep.
want to do what you need them to do.
Yep.
And obviously, these are people who are working out east where this must come up so much more.
Right.
But here, we just don't even have that opportunity unless we have this in place. So I feel like it's really important for us to at least have the pad.
Yep.
And have that, ability to stand behind. All right, because
I wonder what bank
Mine's right,
account
that's
that would go into.
a very good
Did it
question.
say, did they say, is it like the wetlands?
They
Okay.
didn't talk about that, but that's another, like, I could ask that question. of them.
Okay, yeah, so ask because,
Yeah.
so like each town has two bank accounts typically. One is, I know this, but this might be kind of like scattered tonight, but like one is the conservation fund, which is established by the town for buying land and doesn't really have, especially here, a clear way to replenish it. Some towns just do every year. They like give money every year, but we don't here. And unless someone donates money, it sits at zero. Then the other fund is the one that all the fees from the NOIs go into, and that's like called like the wetlands fund or something like that. And that one, wetlands conservation account. And that one can only strictly be used for purposes of like implementing the Wetlands Protection Act. So
So
we
enforcement
can't-
or mitigation?
Staff.
it's like staff
I was
time.
gonna say, I think
Yeah.
we paid like Sarah or some mixture, what, one of the.
Yeah,
ones-
like
one of the
some of
ones
my-
before you,
Yeah, some of
For
my,
an extra like hour or 2 hours a week or something like that out of that fund.
okay,
Oh,
yeah. And vernal pool certification can
Mhm.
happen out of that fund.
That's nice.
And then Kristen, to answer your question, I think when you guys go to MAC stuff, I think it might come out of that fund as well, because
Oh,
you're like expanding your knowledge on how to enforce the act.
Yeah.
So, but we'll get to that, but anyway. If that money from the tickets could go into the conservation fund,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like
It says.
big bucks, but $300 at a time.
No. it doesn't say.
So, do you have anything else to say about the?
No,
Okay.
no, but that, just wanted to share that and.
So I
continue.
I went to a talk about the DCS grants, which I can talk about when I think later in this meeting, we talk about funding and grants. So I'll talk about that later. I did the aquatic and terrestrial connectivity talk with Scott Jackson. He's actually the commission chair in Whately.
so he's been
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yep.
Like, I was just like the whole.
I know. Swoon.
Yeah, I was.
He's my old teacher from the 90s.
Oh,
for
really?
decades. Yeah.
Yeah, he
I'm
just,
like my
like-
freshman since I was a kid.
It was like he barely took a breath the whole time. So I was trying my best to follow. Like there was a lot.
He's
And
brilliant.
he's,
He
like,
basically
great.
wrote the Appendix B wildlife habitat evaluation for DEP. He did the salamander crossing on Henry Street in Amherst. He's done a lot for wildlife conservation in Massachusetts.
Yeah, and so he was talking about, because he works at UMass, that all these like models they've created to understand how wildlife travel across the landscape. And it's like we did this and then, but like who knows where they go through the forest. So we added like a random factor to like, and then he's like, and this is what we got. And he showed this map of like all these, and it was like gradients of colors. So it'd be like light into dark, and you could see the dark corridors. And kind of stress the importance of understanding like corridors through forest, corridors through like riparian areas, and corridors over ridge lines, and kind of considering all those when you're talking about creating connectivity across the landscape. But I think what I was understanding is that a lot of his work actually like was utilized with Biomap with creating the, which is
And
cool.
he also wrote the new 2022, I think it was published, the DEP BVW delineation manual.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's like,
Jackson et al.
Super strong.
yeah. So, and then the last thing I want to say, which he wasn't involved in this, but he said it was just really cool that they're going to create a wildlife overpass crossing over Interstate 91 where the Appalachian Trail crosses the Bass Pike.
That's cool.
So they're going to do a big wide one where the Appalachian Trail is on like the far side of it, and then it's like the wildlife. Or I know,
Oh, like the one in Canada?
what?
The big one in Canada, like that one?
Yeah, like they have them out west
Yeah.
too, where it's just like a giant bridge for animals.
Yeah,
But
I
it's
love
also
that.
where the Appalachian Trail is going to cross too.
that's cool.
Isn't that cool?
I saw one in Nevada, by
Yeah.
the dam and Hoover Dam.
Yeah.
Right near there.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah, they're
so
really cool. So that
Awesome.
was that talk. And then the last one I went to, I had a hard time deciding, but I went to the pollinator talk. This guy was like incredible too. He just talks about like pollinator populations, and everyone like thinks about like the honeybee and all the honeybees are dying. He's like, the honeybees are fine. What we're worried about is like the native bees. Yeah, the ones that like they don't live in hives, they like live in the ground. And he's a landscape designer, or like a garden kind of landscape designer, also like some whatever certification in permaculture design. And so he gets hired all over New England, I think, to build to like kind of convert like otherwise not pollinator landscapes. So like grass, or like old farm fields, like a grassy lawn outside the library in Wellesley. Hired him, and they evaluate these landscapes before they do the work and then after, so they can see what kind of impact it had. And so this one project in, I think, Wellesley, next to the library, was just a lawn, like a normal looking lawn. He went out there 3 times before. They didn't find one pollinating anything, like nothing, for all 3 times. And then within 5 months of installing his design, they found like 5 native bees on one flower. Like 3 of them hadn't even been seen in Massachusetts in like years, right? And so like one thing I thought was interesting when they design which plants to use, it's not only what native flowering plants the native pollinators want, but when those pollinators are known to be in that location and what flowering plant flowers at the time that they're in that location. So like a lot of these plants might flower in August, but that particular bee isn't known to be there in August. They're there in May or whatever it is, right? And I thought that was really like next level to consider. So like, as far as we go, like, wouldn't that be cool if we could just get a list specific to Greenfield? And so when we're like telling people to plant, native flowering plants, that we give them the list of things we know insects in Greenfield will use. Yeah. And,
The Greening Greenfield group has done a lot with
Really?
pollinators.
yeah,
They're a good source, and it'd be interesting to see if they have any like recommendations that they do.
yeah.
And there was a pollinator corridor project that had happened, grant funded a few years back. And I don't actually know where it is, like, what does that look like on our landscape, but so it'd be neat to, maybe I can ask Nancy Hazard or. one of the-
Yeah, because it seems like with a little legwork, then we just have it,
Yeah. Exactly.
and that's just like, we're just like handing it out to all the applicants,
Yeah.
it could have a big impact. Yeah.
It's nice to get it out, yeah.
And just one final note, just to circle back to the biodiversity talk in the beginning, because that was really good too. And they talked about biodiversity being instrumental to climate change resilience. But something they brought up dark skies,
Mhm.
and I thought somebody in the crowd had a good question about, could you kind of sneak in dark sky stuff with the conditions? So like if,
Oh, yeah.
so like, let's just use Aldi, for example. If they're like setting up a parking lot with all these lights and the light pollution is going into the intermittent stream habitat area, or like if there's bordering vegetative wetland or whatever, we know certain species in there are adverse to like 24-hour light. Could we put a condition that parking lot lights need to, that might be getting like icky with like building inspector.
There's also the safety concerns around dark spaces of that
I
nature.
think one of the things was that what you can do is determined by your bylaws.
Mhm.
So if we don't have dark skies written into our bylaws, then we might not have the leverage to enforce it. But if we did,
But is it called dark skies? Like, it doesn't have to be using that language. It's more like lights after midnight,
Light pollution.
Yeah.
right? Because if the store is closed, are we still worried about?
Yeah,
Safety.
yeah, we are, because it's
Yeah.
right off of 91 and there's a real person safety concern around parking lots, interstates and human trafficking and yeah.
Gotcha.
So while I totally hear where you're at, and I
Yeah.
think other locations and other examples of that would be totally appropriate.
Yeah.
I don't think in that specific spot that we're discussing at the moment would be the best place to do that.
Okay.
But does it have to be completely dark? I thought there were filters you could put on.
Yeah, I was just gonna
I
say
actually
that.
I don't know anything about this topic. I just thought the question was really interesting, because I was like, oh, that's like a whole nother level. Not just like worried about like sediment
Right.
going in, it's like kind of understanding the impacts of light on the habitat that they're building.
Well, it also, just to like back up for a second, so under the Wetlands Protection Act, and again, like Emily was saying, it could be different if it's written into our bylaw, but under the state regs, wildlife habitat is an interest protected under the act. So if light pollution isn't impacting wildlife habitat in particular, that might be a little tricky. You know what I mean? It's not like you're filling a vernal pool or cutting down a tree that has like cavities that,
Degradation.
saw what owls are using.
Yeah, although there's.
Because I would argue that light does
Yeah.
have an impact on
I would
habitat.
agree with you, but it gets tricky because I also think that cutting down trees, affects carbon sequestration, but it's been denied as a quote unquote significant habitat function before when I was reviewed.
Bizarre, because
I know, right? So I just wonder if
the
this would
road
be
suppressors.
tricky, like as it has to be like a function, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't know,
really
it's-
carbon
Well, maybe
sequestration
if it's like a
and all.
rare and endangered species, like if they require I don't know. This is getting into areas that.
Yeah, I
you know,
agree. But this is interesting. I'm totally all for it, you know?
You know,
That's it.
something that I would love to encourage us to do is just like, you know, sometimes Mark comes in and, you know, on the circuit and helps us work on questions. Have people come in and talk about topics, you know, like we could have somebody come in and just chat with us about pollinators or dark skies. That's something that I'm planning to do in conscoms around to just talk about conservation and answer their questions or whatever. So there'd be people who would be interested in doing that.
Would be great, especially when we've got, an agenda like we have tonight where we don't have any
Yeah.
public meetings.
Yep.
Might be tough to schedule, because sometimes it's not,
Last
but I
minute.
do love that idea. That would, I especially would be like, oh.
I'd be happy.
So grateful.
Kristen, I'm sure that there's folks you could recommend, but I'd be happy to like, you know, volunteer to make those connections, because I think it'd be great. Especially right now, because a lot of us are getting, you know, I'm kind of rusty, you're getting your feet wet, and it'd be wonderful to enrich what we know with them.
What do you mean, like,
Thanks.
how Mark comes around? You mean he would
So
bring
Mark
someone with him?
Simpson's the circuit ride.
Well, I know that, and I know
How
he
he-
came.
When I was in Plainfield on the conscom, so he would go out and he would visit us. And in addition to helping us with any specific questions that we were dealing with, he would sometimes just chat with us, and like you
Okay.
learn so much more from someone like
Right.
Mark, who had, you know, or who can talk in depth about the processes
Right.
and the applications and the precedents and things like that. So whenever he would come out and be with the commission, we always like walked away knowing more.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, but you mean in addition to like his stop-ins, getting other people that to just kind of pop in, okay.
Not to spend the whole night, but you know.
Well, it's that, it brings up a subject that I maybe we don't want to talk about right at this exact moment, but just to put it out there so that we could put it on an agenda or on somebody's brains. But on these nights when we don't have public hearings, and we've kind of touched on this, but having like time boundaries.
Yeah.
So it's really specific, like if we don't have a meeting where we have our agenda items and we get X amount of minutes per item and we're done at 8:30.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I think.
Other people on their agendas write like 15 minutes.
Yep.
You
Or
know,
like 7:40
I
to
could see-
7:45. Yeah, look at, like, pull up Amherst, for example. Amherst has all of their meeting minutes and their agendas online, their videos posted online because they're remote. And it's very specific. It's like 5 minutes for you and 10 minutes for you.
Yeah.
15 minutes, it's very clear. So if
I
you know
could
you're
do
on that
that.
agenda, you're on at 7:45.
I think that would be a nice thing to move forward with.
Yeah,
Don't have to like dive into it right now, but.
yeah, Totally.
It was nice to be able to have the people who were here not have to sit through our discussions of like the MAC conference and
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
though. So having attendees
Go first.
go first,
Yeah.
does make
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
If they're present.
yeah, like we'll keep the
Absolutely.
format, but then like make the, yeah, like we did today.
Yeah.
Because the city clerk's office sticklers about format,
Yeah.
I noticed. Okay, so that's that.
All right,
The only other thing was just to very briefly, I can report in about the most recent open space task force meeting.
I think we've got a few other things, but maybe.
That would be the priority parcels map, you could talk about that.
Yeah,
Whenever it comes up.
so that's towards the end, but we got the conservation, property maintenance, improvement and priorities. Discuss research on grants and other sources of funding to upkeep the current conservation lands and apply towards acquiring new conservation lands. Agents report back about the progress Travis and the previous agent have made towards conservation land maintenance and documents track the needs of conservation prior properties, which reminds me, I have a hilarious photo I would like to show you. Because my daughters were visiting a friend who lives out on Phyllis Lane and they took a picture of her by one of our yeah.
Oh.
By one of our little.
our signs.
I'll text it to you.
Okay.
Very cute.
Cool.
I know, I'm so jealous. Oh, I want to see.
Yeah.
Aw, I can't see anything.
Actually,
I zoomed in so that. All right, so I asked Eric what bank accounts you all have access to for conservation purposes. And there's 5. 3 are tied to actual conservation areas. 1 is the Greenfield Tap and Die Conservation Account. So that one can be used for Griswold. And has $9,444 in it. Griswold Conservation Account has $1,773 in it. So it's, 11 grand for Griswold ish. And then there's Bernardston Road Conservation Area Account, and that has $1,319.
So which is the one that's on Bernardston Road? Because I felt like there was a couple, I was looking through.
Oh,
The
Yeah.
one across the street from the center school, is that the one?
Yeah, that was,
Yeah. Oh,
that one
yeah.
was weird too, so I
That-
don't think we even access that.
That's,
Is
I
that-
think that's the one that doesn't have any access, right?
There's a.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, yeah.
Is it connected to the Green River swimming area?
No, this is up at
It's-
Center School.
Yeah.
On Bernardston
It's
Road.
across the street on the west side of 5 and 10, or is that just,
Oh.
yeah, it's 5 and 10.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out like, how would you even get in, because there's a 6-foot easement along the.
was it the Westwood Wildlife Sanctuary?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
And I think there's like by some house. you can,
Yeah.
Like walk through somebody's yard.
Yeah, which is super.
Ooh.
Maybe on Westwood,
Westwood,
Yep.
There
Court
used to be a
Road.
sign, you could see it on Bernardston Road, but
So
then the sign discussed, I don't know.
it
the-
says unmarked on the,
Oh.
There used to be one that said Westwood Wild, if you kind of have to look underneath the tree, but you can see it, I mean, it's a big sign.
Yeah.
But then it was some, I thought there was something about some part of it was being sold.
Nice.
Yeah, 'cause it's totally isolated,
Yeah, it's in the middle of the.
but it's also not too far, again, not too far from 91, and so. Well, I'm sorry, I'm.
You know,
Digressing.
It's near the science school, you know, the science school could.
So,
Something with that.
so they had a kid do a project, and I don't know if they went across the road, but one of the kids like mapped all of the trails that are around the center school.
Oh.
So it
It's on
would be
the,
worth,
it's on different side of the road.
yeah, so I don't know,
Something
I
like that,
assume they
yeah.
didn't, but it would be worth reaching out and if they didn't do that side, like, have them do that.
Right, see if they, but they need access to it, they need to be able to.
Well, because it's conservation and there's that 6-foot easement, we have legal access. We would just have to basically like figure out whose door to knock on and be like, please don't shoot me.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that happens up in the.
So I didn't look into like that actual property at all. I just looked at the accounts and like, I was mainly happy to see that Griswold did have,
Yeah.
because that was, I feel like the priority the last time the commission
Yeah.
visited this topic. So that has 11 grand. So there's some stuff in there, that can be addressed. But I asked Eric how that account goes up in value, and he said it doesn't unless someone donates. So it's
When we use it.
yeah, it's as we use it, it's going down, it's not going back up. So the other 2 accounts that are the ones I talked about before that all towns tend to have, wetlands conservation account, which is from NOI fees. That has over $46,000, which
Oh,
is
And that is
But-
readily replenished.
that
So,
that's the only account you guys have that is growing
Mhm.
but it
regularly,
can be used.
but it can, yeah, but it's also the most restricted,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So it's for staff time spent administering the acts / salaries, vernal pool certification, and I think education and potentially legal defense. Which
Who determines that? Is it a state or is it the town has determined that? what it can be used for.
It's the state,
Stated.
yeah. And, but you have to access the money, you go through the town. But I think the state had set, because the state makes towns create it and has the fees on the NOIs go to it, so that they're not putting a burden on the town to implement a state law.
Mhm.
Right, so it's like making it so that towns have the ability to implement the state law.
Yeah, we get $12.50 more than half of every fee. So like, yeah, that's how they divide up the fees by state and town or city. Like they cut it in half and then plus $12.50 to the municipality, minus $12.50 goes to the state. We're making out.
Yeah. So then the last account is a conservation trust fund account, and that has $0.
Uh-oh.
That's the one we buy land with, so,
That's,
Oh.
that's,
yeah,
is that the, one we have to go through council to get them to
Yeah.
set up an approval, like a yearly approval or whatever of 5,000. I don't, because I went to one of the
Oh, yeah,
conferences last year and they were talking about that, and towns are like, oh, yeah, we just automatically, it's part of the
Yeah,
budget,
there's
every
a-
year we get $5,000.
yeah, there's a lot of towns that,
How do we get that to happen?
Yeah.
well, I don't know that it will happen here, but I think that would have to be,
I guess it would have to be pulled and then
Yeah.
voted on, and
Yeah.
they're not gonna vote on it.
yeah, so what I've heard is that, when it comes to like buying land, like Greenfield's not doing that. So if we can get a grant that's reimbursable, then I think Greenfield is willing to work with that because they know they'll get the money back. But it's not a conversation, I think, if it's just all
Just
Greenfield.
put it in.
Yeah. Like even matching, I think is difficult to get. So I did look through all the different grants that there are, and most all of them are reimbursement based. I think that as far as getting money from the town goes, the CPA grant is the best option, because that money is specifically for open space parks and like housing or something like that. Yeah. And in the last several years, the commission hasn't had put in any request for any project through CPA. So I feel like that ups the odds of getting something approved because it's mainly been the Parks Department and some housing stuff.
Sorry, first of all, what is CPA?
So CPA is, God, what does that stand for?
Community preservation.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yes, so that's like it's like a tax.
It's a surcharge on your taxes.
Yes. And so I don't know if it's like 2 or 3%. And so it's coming from the town residents and put in a fund. And then every year there's a committee that are a group, I don't know what they're called,
CDC.
that will review applications and decide who gets money.
When does the RFA
But
come out?
that's.
All these
that-
acronyms, I
that-
haven't.
That's that's one I was gonna say,
Their schedule.
Or is it rolling?
yeah.
So
because how do you
the-
know when you find a property to buy?
Applications are due in August for fiscal year 26. Sorry, pre-applications are due in September. In August, you find out how much money in CPA funds are available total. Last year, it was $213,000. So that kind of gives a ballpark. November, so pre-applications in September are required. And November is full applications are due. And then it says June, July is when you find out.
So it's a whole year process.
It is.
So are the pre-applications like a pre-proposal, we submit our pre-proposal, they either approve our pre-proposal and then we are invited to submit a full proposal?
I'm not clear on like anything else besides basically what I just said.
Yeah.
Um,
Something like that.
Yeah.
would have to already know what we wanted to buy. You know,
Well, the thing is,
we
is
can apply for it, but then you have to hope they're not gonna
So it's
sell it to somebody else in like the next year, because
A lot of times what people do is they get a PNS. So you have like a year, year and a half, where you have the option to purchase it. It's purchase and sale. And you know, that's why land trust.
Yeah, this is-
Right?
great knowledge.
that whole thing was a CPA thing.
Okay.
'Cause I remember that was a huge, that was. a
That's
lot of
MVP.
CPI didn't exist in the town until 2 years ago.
Wait, do you mean the
3 years ago?
planting thing?
Yeah,
Well,
It's
that
M
property.
MVP.
oh, that's MVP. Okay,
Yeah.
yes,
I
it's like,
don't
'cause I
know
know,
if we
'cause I know
purchased
it
them.
took a lot.
But
It-
it wasn't
we
paid by
didn't-
CPI,
We didn't know, that was a,
but it must have been some
it was a
other.
FEMA thing. It was. a
Oh,
FEMA thing.
yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Which is why you can't do anything.
Yes.
So anyway, that it's project based too, like if there's an actual project that,
Yeah.
you know, Conway, I guess, used CPA funds as a match for a Mass DEP S319 grant, which funded a bank stabilization, river habitat restoration, and floodplain reconnection project. So you can get creative, like using these things to like, you know, get a few different grants, right?
Exactly.
So also the talk I went to at the MAC conference was about land grants. And that those are to help purchase conservation land. But the reimbursement is 52 to 70% of the costs. So maybe it'd be like a CPA plus, you know, that. There's a lot of moving parts though,
Yes.
and like,
Well, so my question is, can we include salary funds as part of the budget request? Because who's gonna administer this? And can we get more hours for somebody like you, if you, you might want that, and pay for that through the grant? Because I'm just having, I'm sure you have been through the granting rigmarole as well, and I don't know. if
I don't have any experience with the grants, like it's like.
I mean, they're great, but they're super time consuming. And you have to exact them to the letter of your proposal to include your budget justification. So, if.
Typically, that kind of grant doesn't include staff time,
Okay.
but it can include. due
But there's-
diligence time, which are also.
There's another grant that is in the talk that I went to, it's called Park Grant. Oh, no, sorry, Conservation Assistance Grant. And that helps with, I think that can help with paying people to help
Okay.
you.
That's great.
Yeah.
So like you could hire a grant writer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like a surveyor, like appraisal.
Mhm.
I think it might be like up to $5,000. So like if you contracted it out,
Mhm.
and that is not like they just approve the money you ask for. It's not like reimbursement.
They just,
Yeah.
it's granted. and
Yeah,
encumbered and-
whereas land, it's reimbursement, so you have to like figure it all out and then you get the money
Okay, so that's
afterwards.
basically like a seed grant for another grant.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's so many, there's
Yeah,
there's a lot of options, and it was good to hear that Greenfield is down to like show up if they're getting reimbursed, because that would be,
That's huge.
there'd be no options basically, if they didn't.
Yeah.
Except for CPI,
Yeah.
which I think is planting a seed for, you know, you guys thinking about potential projects that we might wanna, it wouldn't,
Oh, yeah.
it wouldn't necessarily have to be purchasing the land, it could also be, yeah, yeah.
Partnering with land trusts is a great way to get support for that, because, for example, the way that Franklin Land Trust works is that we have, we're funded by members and then some grants and some other fundraising that we do. But so that we can, and they're professionals, they've done this many times, you know, my staff member Liam Cregan, who talk to the Open Space Task Force. There's folks at Mount Grace, you know, there's a lot of folks who've done this over and over again. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And they also do often have experience with grants too, in addition to the conservation. So if and when we identify properties through this prioritization process that we're going through, they'd be great partners to help us through that process. And then the state is very helpful as well. The state staff and the grants. You know, if there's a farm that's being conserved, the APR staff is extremely helpful. That's a great program to go through. They can pay for a lot of the costs.
I will say at this particular point in time that NRCS has lost
Mhm.
some folks to the recent
The cutbacks.
yes, the 1 year probationary period folks from NRCS. So that does put an onus on their time. But that doesn't mean that they're not viable partners. It just means that it could be a little bit more difficult than maybe it has been in recent years. But that's all fabulous information to know, and to know that we've got options, especially with the reimbursement piece.
Yeah,
Is that list on the,
yeah, I
doc-
was just gonna tell you,
It was
Great.
really Brian and God that I
yeah.
asked Travis, because he's like, yeah, here you go.
Yeah, so if you go into our meeting in funds, I found all these other things that Travis had put in here previously, and then I just added my research. And then when I went into the open space plan, there's also a whole section, this is just extracted from the open space plan of all the grant opportunities, which I found that today after I like did all this. I was like, oh, so that's all in the G Drive for you guys if you're feeling inspired to look at it. So I guess the last thing, when I was at the MAC conference, I talked to DER, Department of Environmental Restoration.
Division of Environmental Restoration,
Yeah,
or
there you go.
Ecological Restoration, sorry.
Yeah. I knew it was something like that. I know. So they do a lot of work restoring wetlands. And they have like their own team that they can use. It seemed like, I didn't like get the full picture, but it seemed like you can apply to have them restore an area that is degraded. And if approved, they bring their team in and they do it.
Even
But
a construction team, because they're a state agency.
no, the wetland restoration team. I don't know. I have the thing. This is like all new to me, so I'm like,
That's okay. We don't need to get in the weeds about the details of each and every grant, but not right now, but
well, what I was bringing this one up for is because I didn't know if there was anywhere in Greenfield that was like just, yes, super degraded, full of fill, if that would maybe be something that would be a potential project.
So I'm working on a project right now that's DER funded through a small bridge grant in Leiden on West Leiden Road. There's a really undersized, poor quality culvert that they're replacing with a small bridge, and that got a huge amount of funding. I know they do stuff like that, you know, for like stream crossing upgrades, but it's usually, I don't know who from the town would do it. I think in the Leiden situation, it was the city council who applied for it, not the Concom. But we could do it too, if it's like a culvert crossing or some kind of like, some crossing that's not meeting the stream crossing standards, that needs to be upgraded. And maybe DPW would do it on, I'm not sure how that would work, but.
Spaces like town owned spaces, or could we get our feet wet with this and maybe provide some support to the guy out in Limbllock? Why? Because there's that, all of the grading
Oh,
that
yeah.
went down into the actual
Yeah.
area that we still have not yet addressed.
Well, I just talked to them about specifically about wetland restoration. Because they're doing a project in Northampton where they're reclaiming a golf course. Northampton like bought a golf course.
Yeah.
And they're going in and like restoring the riparian zone. So it's not like, do you know what I mean? But I don't live in Greenfield and I don't know if there's like an obviously glaring project that needs attention that no one has the money for, because that would be a good source of funds.
They also do like dam removal and I've got a couple projects on agricultural, like commercial, retired commercial agricultural areas being restored to natural wetlands with DER. That's specific to DER.
Like that what?
I know that there was supposed to be a wetland restoration project at Highland Park. They rooted up, and I don't know whether it's ever been remediated.
Oh, when was that?
Remember, you know what I'm talking about, Kristen?
I can't even hear you. Every time you guys turn your heads, I can't hear you.
Highland Park,
Highland Park.
a wetland restoration project at Highland Park that went wrong.
No, I don't remember that.
Yeah, it's the one that they made the town take over the emergency or the enforcement.
Was that DER? That wasn't DER.
What?
That wasn't DER though, was it?
No.
Oh.
No, she was just saying, we were just talking about whether there was any place in.
Oh. Gotcha. Okay.
use. So I don't know whether that ever got, I don't believe it ever got really fixed.
Okay,
Perhaps that could go into our list of properties that require assessment. to
Mhm.
determine-
yeah,
Okay.
okay,
We're not recording.
okay.
Fair enough, fair enough.
So that's it. Basically, there are a lot of options, and I think the most realistic one right now is the CPA.
Cool.
And and then sorry, so then to move on to Mitch and Travis's work, in the G Drive, if you go to GTD Conservation Land Stewardship, they made a map, the trail assessment folder. There is a map. Kristen, are you following this or should I share my
Mhm.
screen?
Trail assessment, yeah.
Yeah, you're following it?
Sidewalk trail, the trail assessment PDF, that's 2011, or the 723 map.
72322.
Oh, oopsie, I opened the wrong one.
Oh,
Oh, no,
they
this is the
made-
right one. You want me to do a share?
No, I just wanted to make sure you're like following along because everybody else is here.
Yeah, and I'm familiar with Griswold too, because I walk my dog there.
Right, but what I was referencing was the numbers on the map reference areas that need attention.
Oh, okay, those aren't the kiosks, gotcha.
No,
No.
and then so the map, that's the map, and if you open the stewardship photos, it has photo point 1 and it shows a picture of what it's like on that map. And so this was the priority list that Mitch and Travis made of what needs attention at Griswold.
Unfortunately, that was 2002.
I know,
So.
but maybe we could assume it's even worse.
Yeah. Right, Kristen, I don't know, you know that better.
Yeah, Kristen might know pretty well. She's been,
I know we're getting close to 8:30, but some of the stuff that was shared by Marlo at the Open Space Task Force. What's Marlo's last name from DPW? Warner, yeah.
Warner.
Just connects with this.
Okay,
The questions that they had for Marlo, the group, the Open Space Task Force, was when, from DPW's point of view, how do they relate to conservation properties? What's their involvement? And if the town or the city was taking on another conservation property, what would their issues or concerns be that would come up? And so Marlo said they're fairly minimal, but DPW does, in response either to requests by the Conservation Commission or issues that come up, go out and do like basic maintenance, putting chips on trails, or if there's a washout, redoing a road or something like that.
Yeah, they took care of the
Oh.
Miller's Meadow, they took when the embankment was. They restored that.
I
They
didn't
also-
even
they also
think of
put in-
DPW as
They
like
also
a
put in
possible.
the
helpful.
They put the,
Yeah,
like a
the
place to put
posts.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that, they're a partner for us. And he did say that their capacity is pretty much maxed out.
Mhm.
So when thinking about properties, things that are pretty self-sufficient, you know, that maybe have some work done at the start and then can have a occasional maintenance is fine. But if there's anything major or any restoration work, then finding grant funds to work with a contractor, that would be the way to go. And they'd be fine with being, you know, coordinators or helping, you know, like with their
Yeah.
process, but they don't have excess staff to do above and beyond.
Okay.
So like that would be a conversation. We could, you know, maybe talk to Eric and Marlo and say, hey, you know, once we take a look at Griswold and say, you know, these are the things that we know need to be done. Can they be put into the maintenance schedule, or is there a time when, you know, folks might be available to do that?
Yeah, so I could go out and like walk Griswold with this map and figure out what these sites that have already been flagged by Travis and Mitch look like now. And you know, I'm happy to take whatever direction you guys want to, now that we know there's $11,000 that can be used for Griswold.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Were you were gonna try and contact Lincoln Fish?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I
Did you?
haven't done that yet.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
I'll email him.
Well, because I know he was, well, he was the, I don't know, I'm assuming he's still the steward of it, but he had all these plans. I'm gonna like update the kiosk. I'm gonna do this, you know.
Yeah,
So-
not looking like it had been updated recently, I was like,
Right, so I don't know,
Yeah, he'd be a great person to talk to, just to have
Yeah.
continuity of the vision.
because I also think he might be retired, so maybe he has time.
He has retired pretty much.
So he's time.
Yeah.
Yes, you know, maybe that's one of the things that we could use some sort of consultant funds for and.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, instead of being like, hey.
Yep.
Since you're retired. But like, hey, since you're retired, let us get you to do that.
So that's all I have for that.
Awesome, thank you, that was a ton of work.
It was a ton of work. I spent a lot of time on that grant.
Good.
Please. Because there's just seems like there's so much resources out there if you just know where to look, who to ask, and how to do it. Just so many deadlines, and if you're like trying to do CPA so that you can get this, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
do the stars align enough that you can like hit the deadlines, but.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
So next up, priority parcels map, agent to discuss priority parcels identified in open space plan and other information gathered from research.
So I looked at the open space plan and there's not, from what I could tell, a list of parcels that they want to obtain. It's just there's tons of lists of parcels, but it's all fully protected, partially protected, you know, city owned, private owned. So it's stuff that's already out there.
I think the reason why the Open Space Task Force is trying, you know, like one of the things we chose as a doable task was to make this
Yeah,
this list of properties that would, you know, that are a wish list. You know,
Yeah.
that would make sense, that would have an impact, that would be beneficial. So it makes sense, you know, typically in open space plans, there are properties that are mentioned and regions that are mentioned, but maybe they focus more on things that are already conserved rather than, you know, and if there's no list already, then, you know,
But-
that's one of the objectives of the plan.
Yeah, I guess I know that there used to be, maybe not specific parcels, but there were, because the ridge was one of the things, you know.
Yeah.
Anything along the ridge, we want, you know.
Yeah.
And.
Absolutely.
Um,
You know, when it happened, it shouldn't go.
there
Um,
is one map that was it. Let's see. So this map from the open space plan was created using Mass Audubon's mapper tool, MAPPR, and I don't think it's available anymore to use. I scoured the internet before the meeting tonight and I just could not find any active
It might be
link.
you know, like Oliver now, or, you know, something along those lines that it's just was a free tool.
What's Oliver?
Mass Mapper?
Oh,
Yes, it used to be named called Oliver.
well, it's created specifically to identify priority parcels.
Okay.
Yeah, and it uses like biomap, land connectivity, like it had like 4 different things that we would be interested in. And anyway, so there's this map created for the open space plan. The darkest orange is, I actually think that might be medium priority. Low priority is yellow, and I don't think there's high priority on this section of Greenfield. But it seemed like we're, I just don't think we should reinvent the wheel if like a tool exists that, you know what I mean? Where
There's
we're
a
like,
lot of different prioritization tools.
yeah,
I think it's important that we pick what's important to us.
right.
So absolutely, if there's a tool that Audubon has that can tell you, oh, these are bird habitat and these are wetlands and so on, that's great. But they're not gonna be able to tell us what our priorities are.
Right.
So some of the feedback that I gave to the task force based on our discussion was that we really need to narrow down what they're asking. So like, if they want us as the Conservation Commission to review the list of priorities, not only do we need the list, we need a description of what those priorities are, what they're based on, like which layers of biomap is it? And because that's part of the problem I'm experiencing here is, we started with that map that Mitch had made. We didn't know all of us was darker red.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a list of like, oh, these are the things we thought about. So how does that
Yeah.
connect?
Yeah.
And then I also told them that we talked about what's our perspective. Are we looking at this with our wetlands hat on because that's the jurisdictional regulations that we enforce? Or are we broadening out and thinking about conservation as a whole? And if so, that's something we have to grapple with. Like, what does that mean to us? So I said it'd be helpful if when the task force approaches the different boards and commissions that are involved, that they be very specific. Like, I liked the questions that they asked Marla. What are your responsibilities for conservation land? What are you looking for and what are you concerned about? For us, they might have different questions, like what are the resources in town that are degraded that might want restoration? Or what are the areas that are most important for our drinking water or flood resilience, So that could be what we put in. But I think it's good that the task force is, we're trying to take on this responsibility, so you don't have to do it. And then get the feedback from the other boards and commissions. So then, sort of once we get something that we can all buy into and hopefully create a list of properties that would, light up in the various areas and then also be ones that we could find some funding sources to
Yeah.
conserve.
Yeah.
But absolutely, if there's other tools, like, there's TNC has resilient landscapes. There's a whole mess of them that we could look at. Biomap is a huge tool that you use in conservation. Like if things are colored or, light up and biomap, then obviously that's going to be an area that's important. Farm soils, all those kinds of things.
Great. That's all. I thought I would have like a list of parcels from the open space plan, but there wasn't any. So
It's good to know that that's where we're at.
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
None.
Awesome. Project monitoring of the old items in the update?
No.
All right, so. I think we're at that point in the night. Where we determined our next meeting, which
25th.
Yep, will be the 25th of March. And do we have any further comments from any commission folks, anybody? No, all right, can we get a motion to close out for the night?
I'll move. She was drinking. I got it in there.
I'll second you, Emily.
All right, then a vote, please. Kristen, start with you since you're online.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're done for the night.